Hello again, Rian.
Hey, Kelly.
All right, for those of you who have questions, you could send in your question now before we get into the discussion proper. Rian, did you see the question? Someone is asking, is pasteurized goat milk bad? How important is it to consume raw?
Well, you're going to look into it and you're going to see lots of benefits to unpasteurized milk. You're going to see lots of benefits to raw milk. One of my favorite books of all time is The Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. And he talks a lot about the importance of whole milk and bone soup and other things. Now, that was 100 years ago. He wasn't using supplements with his patients. He was using good fats, basically fatty foods, foods that were high in the good fats, including raw milk, bone broth. So, I mean, there is benefits to it, but when it comes to people who are just straight up consuming the 90 essential nutrients, even in our packaged product forms, I can't see a difference between pasteurized and unpasteurized milk. Having said that, I don't buy pasteurized milk. I don't think I've ever purchased milk in my entire life from a grocery store, mostly just because I was poor for most of my life. You know, my mother bought it when I was a kid, but I've never purchased milk from a grocery store. When we drink milk, we get goat milk from our friend, and it's raw. It comes directly out of the teat of the goat. We strain it. That is it. It's the only thing we do to it. So I believe in raw milk. I don't see any value. It's all about dollar value to me. I don't see any value in pasteurized milk. I don't see any value in milk that's at the grocery store, especially if it's not full fat. It's basically water. It's white water to me, so I wouldn't pay for any of that. Generally, I don't recommend buying liquids from a grocery store at all. It's just not a good deal. And if you do want more health value from your milk, I mean, I don't even think they should call anything that's not whole milk. I don't think they should call it milk. Frankly, it's a different product. It's watered down. It's diluted. The pasteurization is going to destroy a lot of the good bacteria, which is a lot of the reason for drinking milk. That's one of the big benefits of drinking raw milk is that you do get good bacteria in it, along with the good fats. But the good bacteria is a big part of your digestive system. This is what helps you absorb nutrients. It's a big part of your immune system. So drinking milk without probiotics, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense. But I get it. Yeah, it's a bit of a long answer, but I'm almost done. I do get it. The way that they collect milk currently, like we go to our friend who has goats, and when they're pregnant or after they're pregnant, they produce milk. We literally get it from one goat. We milk one goat, literally, physically, into a jar, and we take that jar home. That's not how they do it for the grocery store. They go and they collect milk from hundreds or thousands of cows or goat or whatever, and they put it all together in a big truck, right? So if there's any problem with any of these cows, like if any of that milk is bad, it contaminates the entire batch. So pasteurization makes sense on a commercial level, but if you want the best milk, you should go directly to a farmer and buy whole milk directly. And in the best case scenario, it only came from one animal. So if there's a problem, the problem has to be in that one animal for it to show up. But the overall difference for you, you don't even need to drink milk is the real truth. You don't have to drink milk to be healthy. Milk is for babies, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said it famously in the film Pumping Iron. Milk is for babies. Milk is for babies. Milk is for growing babies. That is what milk is for. We can drink it as adults. There's no problem. The so-called problems with with unpasteurized milk are way overblown. I've never seen a health problem from people drinking raw milk ever. I've also never seen a problem from people drinking regular milk. And I say that even knowing that some people are sensitive to dairy, because if they correct their digestion, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Someone says, I'm on the 90, but I'm trying to get a high protein diet and it's easy to chug it. Yeah, it is a good way to increase your calories. It's a good way to increase your protein, but it's specifically a good way to increase your fat. And generally, again, you don't need to drink milk. You can get the good fats and you can get protein from other places. It's not a big deal. As long as you're taking the 90 essential nutrients and you're avoiding the bad foods, we really don't care whether you drink milk or not. It's not a requirement. If anything, we say the best source of these good fats is going to be eggs. It's the number one power food in the world. And even back in my bodybuilding days, we would be doing eggs. I would drink the milk, but I wasn't counting on the milk. I wasn't calculating the milk in my protein intake or fat intake. Now, let me just say that if people come to us with a brain disease or a neurological problem, talking about MS, ALS, Huntington's disease, any of the dementias, Alzheimer's, Wernicke-Korsakoff, any of these things where they have a brain or a nervous system problem, increasing the fat a lot is part of our recommendation. We recommend all 90 essential nutrients, extra selenium, which is one of the most important of the fatty nutrients, and we would recommend whole milk, raw milk, or at least, it doesn't have to be raw. We would say full fat milk, heavy cream, heavy whipping cream. You know, we might recommend, like, especially if someone's on a feeding tube, we might recommend getting one of the meal replacements that we have, and instead of making it with water, making it with milk. Sorry, not milk, milk if you have it, but heavy whipping cream optimally. And it's because of the fats. It's giving you more of the fats. Your brain, your nervous system are largely made of fats. So that's a good way to increase it. The average person, you don't need to drink milk at all if you don't feel like it. Plenty of food sources of good fats. Milk is primarily for babies. We can drink it if we want. I see no real substantive difference between pasteurized milk and raw milk. At least I see no actual difference, no detectable difference between people who drink pasteurized and unpasteurized. Like, it's inconsequential to their overall nutrition. There's not going to be enough calcium and stuff in it no matter what. So that doesn't matter. That's not important. But if you do want the healthiest option, in my opinion, it is raw milk from a single animal. And things like goat or camel or even another species of cow other than our standard dairy cows, anybody who has sensitivities to milk or dairy products in general, they tend to do a lot better on those other products, and they tend to have no problem at all with goat milk. People who say, I can't drink cow milk, they tend to be able to drink goat milk, no problem, or camel milk, no problem, which is also very high in fat and very healthy. So I think I've answered that sufficiently.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good day, everybody, and thank you for joining our discussion this evening, depending on where you're joining from. Today or tonight, we would be having a continuation of our previous discussion on Mudflood, hidden history, chronology, and whatnot. Rian, I think we'll just kick it off with the question of what timeline or what dates, when around did the last mud flood occurred?
It's hard to say. It happened at least before 1780. It had to have happened before 1780 because, as far as I can tell from art, you go back to 1780, what we see is the red brick Tartarian infrastructure already flooded. So there's a lot of people who are saying 1850 and stuff, and I was on that number for a while, 1850, but I don't see any evidence of it happening in 1850. What we see evidence of in the 1800s is lots of wars, earthquakes and other things, but specifically lots of wars and great fires. Almost every city had a great fire. And this looks to me like it was just covering up the Tartarian world. It looks like the controllers had already conquered, which would be around the 1780 mark. They had already won the war against Tartaria, and then they were knocking down a bunch of buildings and reshaping cities and re-educating the people who were left over. That happened during the 1850s, but that's not a mud flood, right? So the mud flood had to have happened before that, and to me it happened before the 1780s, and probably sometime in the 1700s was the last one. But they happened in different places. Like, I don't think they happened all at one time. I think there were major cataclysms in the 1300s, even maybe further back. It's probably happened multiple times in history, but I think the last absolutely major, massive, earth-changing meltdown, I would call it, rather than a mud flood, would be in the 1300s. It's hard to pin down. It's hard to pin down because, again, when I was doing that video, who the heck built the red brick buildings, I hit the wall at 1780. At 1780, it just looked like, you know, definitely the red brick buildings were already here and already flooded. And you can go back a little bit further. You know, I'm looking at etchings and lithographs from the 1600s, 1500s. A little bit, they look like the red brick building. Hard to tell. But then before that, when you get to the real Renaissance, it's all Greco-Roman. It's not red brick. So and there could be added years in there, which adds to the confusion. I don't know if there's added years. I don't think so. I think it's steadily along there. What I think happened is most of what we know of is the Renaissance comes from Europe, which, you know, Italy and Germany and Europe, basically. They portrayed the Greco-Roman architecture. primarily, basically only the Greco-Roman, and there's wooden structures. And it looks like the Greco-Roman stuff was built long before, because the people actually, the actual dwellings are usually cheap junk, basically wooden junk, and often it's just literally like built onto the old Greco-Roman architecture. And even in famous buildings like the Louvre and stuff, it looks like we had these big, fantastic buildings, but we weren't very good at actually building, so we had all these wooden structures like stapled onto it, you know. There's lots of pictures of castles that look very, very old, but yet they've got all these wooden structures in and around them, you know, clipped onto them, basically. That looks like the people in the actual medieval times. That's the stuff that they were actually building, not the castles themselves. The castles and all this would have been Greco-Roman. We could call it Tartarian, I'm not sure, but most definitely the red brick infrastructure is built on top of that. You know, when we talk about star forts and when we talk about a lot of the big, huge buildings with big columns and all this, and that seems to be from a time before the red brick builders. The red brick builders built on top of that stuff. So these are distinctly different civilizations. And when, again, last time we went into the Europeans, or basically the Romans or the Catholics, you know, these people that lived in Italy and that lived in Europe and were painting it. So that's all I have to look at is paintings and lithographs and etchings and drawings. They were painting the world as they saw it, and the world that they saw was a Greco-Roman world in ruins, largely in ruins. It took hundreds of years, it looked like, to clean it all up and to get some of the cities looking nice, like Milan and Florence and even Rome. But Rome wasn't as big of a deal as Florence by any means. So they pictured the world as they saw it, and what they saw was Greco-Roman. And it wasn't until later, until the 1700s, that I see any artists really painting or drawing the red brick world. And I think that's because the people who lived in the red brick world were not Europeans, right? They were Tartarians. Now, it does get a little bit confusing because there's Tartarian infrastructure all over Europe, but we don't see the same cataclysmic mudflood evidence in Europe as we see in the Americas, Australia, Africa, and definitely Central Asia and Russia. We see massive, massive destruction in these other continents, not necessarily Europe itself, but Europe is mud flooded. It most definitely is. So it could have all happened at the same time. Probably didn't. Probably happened at different times in different places. Probably was the result of larger cataclysms. Really not sure. Can't pin it down. But I don't think it was in the 1800s. From what I can tell, most people, most alternative researchers are no longer really pinning down the 1800s as when the events themselves happened. In the 1800s, it seems to be pretty well understood now that that was the cleanup operation. That was the cover-up operation. That was when it was in full-fledged. And in the 1900s as well, we're still in the midst of cleaning up, digging out, and covering up evidence of the old world.
Thank you very much. You know, the reason why I was asking the timeline or the dates was because, you know, like you clearly pointed out, it seems most people are looking around 1830s. This is where most people focus around, in around 1830s. And if the mud flood took place around 1830s, I think that was close enough for us to have been very much acquainted with the history. You know, our great grandparents should have been able to pass that out down, and then it would be a popular knowledge. Okay, if it is around 1830, that was what I was thinking, which was why I asked the question of when did you think it happened. Now, the next question then is: we understand that in many of these buildings, which was one of the things that actually caught my attention, you find the doors to be very big, bigger than what we are seeing today. All right, bigger than what we are seeing today. The windows are ginormous; they are very big, and then that points me to a direction. What sort of civilization existed? What type of beings existed during this period? Do we have giant beings? Are they real or is it fictional? Okay, do we really have people that are as tall as 20 feet? Okay, because this is how I'm trying to rationalize the need for big doors, big windows, and whatnot. So I'm going.
Well, to me, it's not even a debate. Most definitely, there was giants. In art, again, a lot of what I know comes from art. Just looking at art, I don't believe everything that was in art, You know, I don't believe there's sufficient evidence on drawings alone to say that griffins existed or other mythological creatures like that. A lot of people say, hey, look, there's drawings of griffins. The griffins must have existed. Well, artists have liberty as well. And, you know, they could draw two-headed eagles to represent this and that and whatever, you know. I don't believe that two-headed eagles were really an actual species. But when it comes to giants, the portrayal of giants is much more literal. There's pictures, drawings of people building ships, and it's giants and it's regular people working side by side. The giants obviously have a much easier time with the work. And this goes back to Egyptian art and all kinds of art where there's giants and regular people. So who is in the old world? It looks like giants and regular people. And it's not just huge doors. It's the giveaway is that some of these doors are massive, you know, more than 20 feet tall, but we have smaller doors cut into them and they're built at the same time. And staircases that have huge steps and then regular people-sized steps at the same time right beside it. So they're obviously built to accommodate both sizes of people. And that does account for the overall largeness of the old world because it needed to fit giants as well. You know, but yeah, they had dual staircases and entrances that could accommodate both peoples. And what I see from art is that they work together. And definitely they work together. And I mean, it's not just art that we have evidence. We do have skeletal evidence. A lot of it has been covered up. Now we get into real conspiracy, right? That the Smithsonian and stuff, once they get a hold of big bones, they take them away, they lock them away, who knows what they do with it. But there's also many modern stories that I do believe. One of them, some people say it was a hoax, but in 2002, the US Army reported they found a giant in the Afghan mountains. And the giant had 6 fingers, 6 toes, and it was not a Bigfoot. Now, I'd like to talk about Bigfoot too, but it was not a Bigfoot. It was not a hairy creature. It was a regular creature. It was wearing animal skins. It was using weapons. It looked like a human that lived in a cave. It looked like a caveman, except he was a giant. And, you know, this story has been covered up as well, but some of the people who were there talked about it. And I see no reason why they would lie about it. It's like, what is the purpose of lying about this giant story? I don't know. But, you know, there's lots of remote regions. I don't know if you live in a city out there, but I grew up in the cities. It's easy when you're in the city to think that we have it all mapped out. Don't worry about it. You know, there's not much hiding in the cities. Easy to think, right? But I live in the deep country now, and I know that our untapped land masses are absolutely massive on every continent. You know, even in Europe, I used to think, oh, Europe is all built out because I would go there and I'd visit and I'd just go to the cities and be like, well, there's no Bigfoot hiding. You know, look at Paris, look at Berlin. You know, they're all built out completely. They all got all these narrow streets. They can barely even fit everything. But then I took trains all the way across Europe and I was like, wow, this is largely empty. It's mostly farmland. You know, there's not the huge forests and stuff, but the forest that I live in up north in northern Ontario, that forest is bigger than several countries combined. It's huge. It's absolutely massive. We only have these little roads cut up through it and little towns built around the mining shafts. And then the rest of it is just this ocean of forest that is largely unexplored. And even if it was explored, I think there's stuff living in it, including Bigfoots. And Bigfoot is like entry level conspiracy stuff, and it's stuff that's not taken seriously by the mainstream at all. But I don't know why. I mean, why couldn't there be other creatures out there in these forests? Again, city people, it's easy to think, oh, well, we've explored the forest. No, we haven't. Bigfoots are seen all over the world. They're seen in every state in America, including Alaska. I don't know about Hawaii. They're seen in Asia. They're seen in Australia. They're seen in Africa, definitely. You know, mainland continental Europe, I haven't seen any stories of it. I haven't seen any videos in mainland continental Europe. But when you start to get out to the outskirts, into the eastern countries, you know, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Moldova, Russia, obviously, you know, and then again, the Central Asian, these are huge areas of forest and mountain that are not inhabited by humans. And there are stories all over the world of various forest creatures that are not human. This includes Bigfoots. It includes gnomes. cool, gnomes, dwarfs. And it includes other creatures, things that they call like the dog man. The dog man's not a Bigfoot. The only reason for bringing this up is that if Bigfoot can still exist out there alongside us, basically, there's no reason to believe that giants couldn't have existed as well and don't still exist. Now, I'm assuming that the giants were integrated into Tartarian society and even just the old world Renaissance society in general. I do believe that they were absolutely part of their society. Could they have been driven out? Could they have been exterminated? If the controllers said, hey, we want to get rid of giants, it wouldn't have been that hard to do. Kill the ones that are there, and many of the other ones would have been driven out to the mountains or to some continent that we're not allowed to, which is a whole nother possibility. Do believe there's several other continents out there. They could be on those continents. They could just say, you know what, I've had enough of these small people and their wars and stuff. We're out. We're leaving. There could be some remnants left over, like the Afghan giant. Maybe he wasn't part of society ever. I don't know. If there's primitive people still, there are primitive human beings still that are not in contact with society. And that's in India, the Indian islands, that's in South America and the Amazonia. Obviously, there's still people that are not wanting to be in contact with society. There's no reason to believe that there isn't also giants that fall into that category. Hunter-gatherer giants. Some were part of society and some were not. But it's unfortunate that this is a conspiracy because it's super, super interesting. These people look human, by all looks, they look human, even with the 6 fingers, 6 toes thing. I'm not sure if they all had those extra digits. They wouldn't need to for the theory to make sense. But they obviously were a part of building our world that is covered up now, and we're the ones taking all the credit for it. We, meaning the European controllers, basically, are taking credit for building everything that we have now, whereas it doesn't make sense, as you said at the start of this, it doesn't make sense to have 20, 30, 40-foot doors or stuff like that. It doesn't make sense to have gigantic staircases that we don't need to use. It doesn't make sense to have the whole world overbuilt the way it is, overbuilt in its size and scale. It never did. Why do we need to build that way? I'm interested in why this was covered up, because that's going to be a question that we don't know. Proving the existence of giants or Bigfoot is one thing, but understanding our actual relationship to them is a whole nother story. But yeah, to me, it's not really a debate. Like 100% believe that giants existed, both in the artistic evidence and in the structural building evidence, but also in the hundreds and hundreds of videos there are now of Bigfoots and similar creatures, that even if that Afghan giant wasn't caught on camera, we know that there are giant creatures. Bigfoot is one of those giant creatures. It's a different species, definitely a different species, because again, the Afghan giant and the way that they're depicted in art, they're not depicted as Bigfoots. They're not depicted as fully covered in hair. They're not ape-like. They're humanoid giants. So to me, it's very likely, if not 100% fact, that there are multiple different species of humanoids all over the world, big and small, bigger than us, smaller than us. And there are still pygmy people as well, dwarf people. Well, they're not dwarfs that we call, it was called midget when I was growing up. They call them dwarfs now. That dwarfism is a nutritional thing. That's what causes that. But that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about the African pygmy tribes or the Indonesian skeletons that were found along with the pygmy elephants and other, pygmy type of creatures. They call it the island effect, that things tend to get smaller on islands. And they have they fit these people these skeletons into their evolutionary theory, but I think it's just more proof that there were many more species of humans in the past, and it's most likely, if not 100% fact, that they're still here on this earth with us, just not in our cities, not part of our society. And it's relatively easy for them to hide. Again, if you know what the wilderness, the true scale of the wilderness out there, there's plenty of places to hide. And especially if a creature or even a group of creatures, if they did not want contact with human beings, they do not need to have contact with human beings. There's so much land out there, and we hardly even go in there. And of course, the people
Sure.
who report these things, they're not taken seriously anyways. So we have thousands and thousands of reports, people seeing them. Now we have many hundreds of videos in the modern time of all types of creatures out there that we cannot explain, and they're just flat out not taken seriously by science or by historians or whatever. And it's just a shame, because it seems very obvious that these have always been a part of the landscape of species that are here with us.
I absolutely agree with you, Ryan, because I was reading this book by Xavier Hayes on giants the other time, and interesting book that I would recommend for anyone to read. And then one of the information from the book states that giants still exist today in some remote areas. All right, this is another interesting book on this. Okay, this is Ancient Giants Who Ruled America. Very interesting book too, and this detailed just what you mentioned earlier on the about the role of the Smithsonian Institute in hiding these giants skeletons, and this is how we have any form of doubt. But when you look into it a little bit deeply, there's no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that we have giants who existed and that might still be in existence today. Now, with that being said, let me touch on something else. Other than giants, do you think alien beings really exist?
The
Do
aliens.
you think aliens really do exist?
Let's pick up a little bit on giants first, and slide into aliens. First of all, I think the main reason that the Smithsonian and other what I would call mainstream history outlets, the reason that they would want to hide giants is because it doesn't fit in with their evolutionary theory. And evolution is a Masonic theory. All of the original proponents of evolution were Masons. So to me, this is very much a controlling ideology. It was very much propagated in order to control our worldview, just like space is as well. Space, again, astronauts, all of them are Masons. This is a Freemasonic controller propagated theory, both evolution and the Big Bang. Big Bang is basically just evolution of the universe. It's still the evolutionary theory. So the very people that gave us these theories, in my opinion, are not trustworthy in any way, shape, or form because of their association with Freemasonry. Freemasonry has always been associated with the controlling class of people. So why do they want to cover giants and Bigfoots? Because it doesn't fit with their theory. Although I don't know why they're so against Bigfoot. I mean, Bigfoot could fit in their theory. If we all evolved from apes, there's no reason why Bigfoot can't just be a separate branch of that. But it gets much trickier when we're talking about real giants, humanoid giants, and especially when we realize that they lived beside us and helped build this world that we're still inhabiting now. It becomes very tricky for them, I believe. So that's probably their main reason for covering all this up. When it comes to aliens, aliens are much, much stranger. Now, I've told the story before, although I don't tell it often. I've seen orbs in at least 3 countries now. I've seen them with my own eyes, glowing balls of light that, to me, I don't think this is a U.S. military project. These are fantastically fast-moving UFOs, we'll call them. And it didn't see aliens in them, but I've seen them. And one of the things that happened here, and that we don't see on camera, because there's also lots and lots, there's thousands of videos of UFOs now in various shapes and forms. Some of them do look like they could obviously be human military craft of some kind, black budget projects that we don't know about. But these glowing orbs, this is not human technology. To me, there's no way. And one of the reasons I say that is because on at least a couple of the occasions that I saw them, I've seen them multiple times now. Again, I've seen them in Australia, I've seen them in South America, and I've seen them up north where I live in Northern Ontario, Canada. And on several of those occasions, a few of those occasions, these are not dozens, it's maybe happened 6 times total now. On a couple, 2 or 3 of the occasions, I lost time. Now, this is one of the things that I was told about when I was really much younger. One of my mentors, he told me in all seriousness that he saw a UFO once, and it was a glowing ball of light, and he pulled over in his car to look at it, And he said he looked at it for what he felt was a few minutes, and then he looked down at his cell phone, early cell phone, not a smartphone, but he looked down at his cell phone, and he had all these text messages and missed calls and stuff from the person that he was talking to before he shouldn't be texting and driving, but I'm guessing this is what he was doing when he's telling the story. He was texting and driving. He stops, he pulls over, he looks at the orb. He says to him it was only a couple of minutes, but when he looked down at his phone, it had been a long time. I don't know exactly how long it had been, but long enough for the messages and calls had accumulated where the person he was talking to was like, hey, what happened? You know, did you get in a car accident or something? Is everything okay? What's going on here? So he lost time, and he felt weird about this. Now, I grew up, this is in the town Pickering, Ontario, just east of Toronto. There's a major nuclear power plant there. And one of the things that they say is that someone says he should have recorded it. This is before smartphones. He didn't have a camera. This is just a regular Nokia phone or whatever. They say that you see UFOs more frequently around power stations of any kind, particularly nuclear power stations, and government buildings, and some other types of buildings. But it seems that the crafts are interested in these places. So the place that I grew up happens to be near a major nuclear facility, and there are lots of people who have seen UFOs there as well. So he was one of them, and I really trusted this man. He's not a conspiracy theorist at all. And when he told me, you know, I know he was looking around and making sure no one else was listening, and he swore me to secrecy to never mention his name. Even he's like, if you ever repeat this story to anyone, don't use my name, okay? And I was a kid, and he was much older than me at this time. But this is a man that I would joke around with and stuff, you know, and he was dead serious when he was telling me this story, and I believed him. So when I finally saw one myself, I experienced the same thing, the lost time factor. The first time I was looking at it, got up in the middle of the night to urinate, which it's not even a normal thing for me. Got up to urinate, looked out the window on the way there, and I'm in Sydney, Australia, and I happen to live on a hill. And so I had this big view towards the airport, basically, but I could see, you know, miles downhill. I could see all the streets and all the street lights and all this stuff. And I noticed this glowing ball of light just hovering above the buildings and the houses. But it was like it was tracing the streets, sort of on a grid like this. And I only thought that I had watched it for a few minutes, but when I kind of snapped back into things, I realized that the sun was coming up and my roommate was waking up, and he went to work early or whatever, but like, we're talking a difference between 3 in the morning and like 6:30 in the morning. Like, there's hours here, you know, and I had to pee too at this time. So it's like, I was holding this all this time, and as soon as I snapped back into it, I had to like run to the bathroom, like, oh my gosh, you know, you wake up to pee and you don't pee for 3 hours. I mean, this is now an emergency kind of thing. But I remember my roommate just standing up and looking at me like, what are you doing? You know, and I'm like, what the heck? What do you mean? What am I doing? It was just 3 in the morning a second ago. Now it's whatever. It's the sun is up and this dude's getting ready to go to work, and I just lost hours of my time here. What the heck just happened? Because all I saw was just this, a few minutes of this thing tracing the streets. You know, it wasn't a big deal, but hours had been lost. And this happened again in South America, happened again in Costa Rica, Central America. And I wasn't alone for that one. There was someone there with me. And when we were looking at the thing, we were supposed to go back and meet with the group after dinner or whatever, I don't know. But once again, we were looking at this thing, looking at it move back around in the clouds and whatever. And we're like, it's not taking a straight shot here. Where we are out in the Pacific Nicoya Peninsula, it's not a plane route. You never see planes in the air there. You know, there's no airports in this direction. There's nothing out there in the Pacific Ocean that a plane would be traveling to in that direction. So it's just a place where you never see planes. So we're like, whoa, this glowing ball of light is very weird. And it kept, you know, there was a cloud in the sky, and it would like go behind the cloud and then back, and like, so we had a few minutes to look at it, but the same sort of thing happened, except it was the opposite. It was daytime when we started looking at it, and when we snapped back into things, we realized it's now full-blown nighttime. And actually, the people that we were going to meet were looking for us. They were like, what the heck, we were supposed to meet up? Oh, what happened to you guys? We were supposed to meet up after dinner. We never made it to go get dinner because we were just looking at this thing for a minute or 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden, it was hours later. And people were worried about us, and they didn't think that we were just still back on the cliff where we were at originally they didn't think we'd be, I don't know, they were looking everywhere else in town for us, but they couldn't find us. So it's just interesting. Time was lost. Time was lost in at least those two cases. And I've seen them on more occasions than that, especially up north in Canada. I'm going to wrap this up. So we can talk about actual aliens, but I've never seen a real alien. I've seen these orbs. And in Northern Ontario, I saw a whole bunch of them dancing in the sky. And I thought they were stars at first. I was like, oh, is this another orb? These look like, oh. And yeah, watching them for a while, they ended up being orbs. They're moving significantly fast. They're interacting with each other. They're dancing around. You know, they're changing their hue. They're changing their color. Now, I will say also that I don't know if this is true, but we met some native people up there, and we're white here, right? So they say up north, there's a phrase that when native people want to have a joke with you, you know, they might tell you something fantastical, and they call it being white manned. Basically, they say, "Oh, you just got white manned." So when I told the story to it wasn't just me; it was me and my friend. We were talking to these native people, and they were telling us all kinds of very interesting things, frankly. And they even were like, sort of like psychically evaluating my friend, my young friend that I was with, and, you know, telling him things, kind of like cold reading, telling him things that about himself and about his relationship to his dad and stuff that they could have no way of knowing. Maybe it was cold reading, I don't know. But my friend bursts into tears from some of this stuff. They're like, oh yeah, this thing. And he's like, wow, did you know that? He's crying. He's emotionally overwhelmed by this experience. But these same natives, I just kind of said that to say that, I mean, I think these guys, these people, it was a couple, it was a man and a woman. I think they knew something. You know, I think they were much more in tune with nature. They're more close. They're like real natives. You know what I mean? Like they're really into the actual seance sort of thing, you know, communicating with nature and communicating with animals. And they told us that they are in communication with the beings that control the orbs. They called them Palladians. And they said this is a tall, blonde, Nordic-looking race of basically giants. And they said they were behind the orbs. They didn't really go into much detail. They invited us to come to their reserve and participate in a ritual in which they communicated with these entities. We never took them up on that. And when we told our friends about this, again, they were like, oh, you just got white manned. You know, they're just messing with you, kind of thing. I don't believe it. I believe it was a sincere interaction with these people. I don't know if the full story of them being in contact with Palladians and whatever, but those Nordic people they come up all over the place in history. And, you know, there's someone says there are other races. Yeah, the Palladians. So these come up. I mean, there's reports of these tall, blonde, white people that came and gave information to various natives all over the world. You know, so these could be the good controllers. I don't know. I don't know why they don't help us out more now in these times of need that we're in. I consider us in a crisis, most definitely a spiritual crisis, and most definitely a physical crisis, in the sense that we're trapped under a control system of a bunch of psychopathic masons. You know, we could use the help of a higher being right now. Be a good time for them to come and help us out. But someone's saying here that this happened in Mexico as well. Same story, tall, white, Nordic. Yeah, they find this story all over the place. These tall, white, Nordic, blonde, blue-eyed looking people. And it's not Aryan or anything like that. Like, these are definitely a distinct race of people, and they're probably giants. The giant in Afghanistan, by the way, was red-haired, you know, by the reports. So I don't know. Yes. It could just be like regular humans, where some of them have blonde hair, some of them have brown hair, some of them are dark, some of them are light. I don't think that's the important part. But I think the important part is the high technology that they have access to. We're talking about actual aliens, like gray aliens or reptilians. I mean, problem is that most of the people promoting this information, I don't trust at all. You know, I don't trust David Icke. I don't trust any of the ancient alien people. I think they're in the club. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I think they're part of the control system, and the control system controls both sides. So there's lots of BS information in the conspiracy world. There's lots of planted information. There's lots of blind alleys that we're led down. And as soon as any conspiracy topic starts to become popular, you do see it infiltrated with what we would call agents, agents of deception, Freemasons in some capacity. And, you can look for the 33s and the this and that. But point is, I don't trust David Icke, and I don't trust many of the people who are promoting information about reptilians and about someone saying they're controlled opposition. This is the point. So it's hard to believe them if they're controlled opposition. There is lots of stories. I haven't heard any personally from people that I personally know who have encountered aliens or reptilians. There is some weird things, like especially on camera. There's people who change on camera slightly. It's called liquid crystallization, I believe. I've seen this on people I know when I'm on the phone with them. Do I think they're reptiles? No, I really don't think so. I think it's an effect. I think it's a camera effect.
Okay.
There's some more convincing videos to me of like tongues flickering out by accident. That's more convincing than the liquid crystallization effect, because again, that can be a camera effect. But having a tongue flicker out of a mouth, like a snake's tongue, a reptilian tongue, to me, that's more convincing, and it's harder to fake with just regular CGI and stuff. I know some of these comments things are going to be getting nuts here because we don't know any of these things for sure, and a lot of it is just looking at videos. I've been in the dark side of YouTube for a long time. I've seen a ton of these videos. Some of them are more convincing than others, especially when they're on celebrities that we know are satanic. We know they participate in black magic, and you see their eyes change, into the reptilian slits, or the tongue change. I mean, these are more convincing to me. I don't know if these are planted. I think they're very hard to fake these things. I think these are slips. Now, here's the real question. Are they actual reptilians, or is it because they're participating in black magic that their bodies have been changed in some way? Maybe they're not fully reptilian, but maybe this is just showing up in our reality, if that makes sense. Again, I don't think this reality is purely physical. I think the physical is almost an illusion, whereas our actual reality is based on frequencies. And we can change our frequencies, we can change our life for the better or the worse, depending on how we think and depending on how we speak. And this is part of what black magic is based on, and Satanism is based on, is harnessing the dark forces, basically, for your own personal greed or controlling of other people. So maybe it is that the people who are participating in the black magic, have their souls or whatever overtaken by this darkness, and maybe that darkness is in the form of reptilian, shape-shifting, whatever. Maybe their eyes can change. Someone's saying mean like possession. Yes, maybe it's like possession. Now, most of the literature on aliens, from what I can tell, there's no real big difference between an alien and a demon. There isn't. It's a dark entity. It's a jinn. So these could exist in shadow form, and they could exist in real form, because I don't think real is real. Someone's saying holographic reality based on vibration. Yes. I believe that this is basically a hologram, that the reality is a projection of our minds and the way that we perceive the world, and that works both in good and bad. This can be heaven for you, this can be hell for you, depending on how you view the world, and you can change your perception of reality. This also goes to say that if you're looking for something, you probably will find it. If you're looking for shape-shifting, you probably will see it. Maybe it is if you're, again, practicing the dark magic, that you will be overtaken by these demons, and that will show up on camera sometimes. Maybe it's involuntary. And this is to say that these might not be actual aliens, they might not be actual reptilians, they might not actually be physically inhabiting the body, since physical itself is basically an illusion. I know this is super deep end here, but a lot of this audience, I think, is on the same sort of page. When we look at pictures of aliens, especially of greys, there's only a few that are convincing to me. And I've already said there's a whole bunch of videos and stuff of weird things out there in the wild. Bigfoot's dog man, again, dwarfs in the form of gnomes, fairies, stuff like this. There's all kinds of amorphous objects in the atmosphere, especially around the moon when people film the moon. Amorphous means they don't really have a shape, sort of like jellyfish in the sky, but sort of just like tentacles in the sky. Well, there's a whole bunch of weird entities here in this world, but when it comes to the actual grays, I think a lot of that is planted. I don't know. I don't know, because out of all these years, we've only got a few moderately convincing videos and pictures, whereas the other things like Bigfoot, there's hundreds of videos. There's plenty of videos of gnomes running out of rooms and stuff like this. Some people give them names like fallen angels or Anunnaki. There's tons of it. I don't know. Now I'm going to stop talking here, but I'll tell you one of the more interesting theories on what aliens actually are, on what gray aliens actually are. I've seen it in two places now. One of them is Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper, a very famous conspiracy book. And the other one is a book that I just read called Who Built the Moon? So in both of these theories, both of those books, they have the theory that what we know as gray aliens are humans from the future. Now, to me, this is very, very, very interesting. The Who Built the Moon book, the reason I didn't fully dismiss it, I said it's one of the most bizarre books I've ever read, but I didn't fully dismiss it because the theory is interesting and it does go along with William Cooper's, that the humans of the future came back and built the moon to ensure our survival. Now, this puts, they have a huge elaborate theory for that, but it puts us into a weird situation of what came first, chicken and egg, and, I think it's all a simulation anyways, so I think that a lot of these problems with time travel erase themselves once they've already happened. Very, very difficult to actually explain my thoughts on that, but very interesting to think. To me, it is very possible that what we see as the gray aliens or the controllers now are actually human beings from the future. I don't know what their purpose is. Again, guiding us, making sure that we get to where they want to be in the future. I really have no idea. This is the deep end, of the conspiracy world. It does blow my mind. I'm not sure what to make of any of it. Someone said the moon is plasma. I am much more on the side of believing that the moon is a projection or a hologram or something like that, rather than a physical object, yes. But I do not understand the relationship of all these entities out there. Some of them are smart, some of them are not. Bigfoot seem to have the ability, like many animals, to avoid electronic signals and stuff, so it's hard to get them on camera with game cams and stuff like that. But some of them definitely do seem like much higher entities that know much more, that have much more technology, especially the Palladians, possibly the Greys, if they're real. And if the reptilians are real, or the Greys, to me, they probably are demons. I'm much more willing to accept that these are dark entities rather than humans from the future, but both are in the air. Both are possibilities at this point.
All right. Thank you very much. You've really covered a whole lot of ground right there. I had a female follower of mine. Her name is Sarah. And then she came on live with me one time, some time ago, and then she said she has been adopted before by aliens, or what she termed to be aliens. And while you were narrating your story, I was also thinking, if you lost time, could that also mean that you were adopted? But I wouldn't go into that for now. I'm just thinking, if you lost time, you woke up 3 a.m. to use the restroom, and then you were gone for like 3 hours, and that was a whole long time to be gone for. Maybe you are adopted or something, I don't know. But I'll leave that for that. The question I'm trying to ask now is around Admiral Byrd and his expenditure to Antarctica. And then the whole Admiral Byrd diary. He has a diary, all right, where he wrote his encounter with some beings that are more sophisticated that had more sophisticated technology compared to ours. And also, while I was reading the whole Operation Paperclip and how the German scientists were moved to the United States and how the German Nazis had their base in Antarctica and whatnot. So what I'm trying to ask is, let's start this way. How credible is the story contained in the so-called Admiral Byrd's diary? How much of it is true? Did he really encounter any foreign being or alien beings in Antarctica. Because I think we know I'm guessing that the expenditure to Antarctica is true, the Operation High Jump, right? So I don't know if that is true, but looking at the number of ships and whatnot that they had to, warship and whatnot that they had to travel with, I'm asking how much of the story around Admiral Byrd's diary is true.
Well, I have made a video on this. It's a short video. It's like 7 minutes long. And I do believe that that diary is fake. And I will tell you why. I've read Admiral Byrd's other books. I even went and bought the first editions because I thought there might be some clues in it. There's no clues at all. Byrd was a Mason. He was part of the control group. And he was he was a good controller in the sense that he was loyal to his people, which are the Masons, the controllers, the government. And he was a good admiral for that reason. He was the youngest admiral ever in the Navy. So he was promoted for a reason because he played ball. He played ball for the team that is against us. In his real books that we know he wrote and he published, they're very long and they're very, very detailed. He was a man of impeccable detail. Even though he was on the controllers or whatever, I respect him as an actual writer, researcher, and whatever, because of his impeccable attention to detail. I mean, you read his real books, this guy tells you how many calories his crew ate. It tells you literally everything that happened on every single one of the days. People are like, oh, there's some missing time. It wasn't really missing time during that. I mean, it's not that long. Now, if you read the so-called missing diary of Admiral Byrd, it's very short. It's not even a real book. It's a scam, actually, to even buy it and call it a book because it's got like 2 sentences on each page just to stretch it out and make it an actual book. But it's not an actual book. It's very sloppily written. It has nothing in common with Admiral Byrd's actual writing. There was also another secret diary of Admiral Byrd that was found after that was released. The secret diary that we're speaking about was written in 1989-ish, 1988, 1989. I think it was published in 1990. Well, after that, they found an actual diary of Admiral Byrd. And even the real one that was found in Ohio, it was detailed. He's a detailed person. Now, if he really saw this crystal city as it was in this very short and what I call fake diary, he would have written in more detail about it, whether he was meaning to publish it or not. He's just the type of guy to put the details down. And literally every detail of the Arctic and Antarctic expeditions, he wrote them down. His real books are huge. They are full of detail that you wouldn't even think is important, because as a good military person, he knows that you don't get to decide what details are important, right? He writes down everything because he doesn't know what the future is going to consider important about these expeditions. So he included everything. His books are hard to read. There's so much detail. You're like, oh my God, I don't need to know what the crew ate every single day. But he recorded those details because he didn't know what was important and what wasn't. And he understood enough that it's not up to him to make those decisions. He's going to report all the details. Now, the secret diary, the fake diary, is written as if he's doing it on the fly. Like, he's flying the plane and he's like, oh, we're writing as they're doing it. I mean, okay, but Admiral Byrd would have sat down afterwards and given you the details, even if it was just for him personally. We know that from his actual diaries, that he was impeccable in his details in his actual diaries. You know, he didn't skip on any details. And this fake diary, it's a joke. It's nothing in common with the way that he actually wrote, with the way that he actually thought. And even further than that, I don't believe that nuclear weapons exist. I think nuclear weapons are a hoax. So when the fake diary says that Admiral Byrd went to the Crystal City, the people in the Crystal City, which are described like Palladians, which, again, the myths of Palladians have existed for a long time. So whoever wrote this knew about Palladians, or at least believed in them. And supposedly, they told Byrd, hey, we let you into our futuristic Crystal City in order to warn you about the dangers of nuclear weapons. To me, this is what gives it away point blank, because this advanced civilization that's already away from human beings, I do not think they would be worried about nuclear weapons, even if nuclear weapons were real. And I don't believe nuclear weapons are real, so I don't believe that they would be worried about a fake weapon. These are just regular bombs, regular dynamites, and this is not a nuclear reaction. So it's not something to be concerned about for us, and it's definitely not something to be concerned about for a higher being. Now, who was concerned about nuclear weapons? Any old hippie in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 60s, they were worried about mutually assured destruction. Human beings, this was the propaganda we were given, even all the way up until I grew up, that nuclear holocaust is a very distinct possibility. So anybody who is environmentally conscious or anything along those lines, they were concerned about nuclear weapons. They're the ones that wrote the fake diary, is my point here. To me, there's no way that Palladians give a dang about nuclear weapons if nuclear weapons are fake. And even if they weren't fake, surely they have the technology or the means somehow to stop it from happening. And if these are advanced beings, why wouldn't they just stop it from happening? Why would they let this one guy in and warn him about the danger of nuclear weapons? This seems very much like a political ideology of a person who wrote a fake diary and knew that Admiral Byrd had some trouble on this one day on this one expedition, and they're like, okay, we're going to fill in the gaps. What happened in this 2 hours? Because again, the rest of his time is extremely well documented, but he even wrote about that too. And like I said at the beginning, he's a Mason, so he was a controller. He was in the club. He was not going to tell us anything. He wasn't. I know there's the famous interview of him when he got back from high jump, and he's in South America giving a TV interview, and he said there's a lot more land out there. There's a lot more resources out there. Well, that's a whole different thing. I mean, that's a different story. That's a distinct possibility. Why wouldn't there be tons of coal and metal and diamonds or whatever, is in Antarctica? That's a total possibility. It's totally different from the story that's described in the fake diary. And I don't believe a word of the fake diary. Again, they should have looked at his other writings and been like, hey, let's at least try and match this a little bit. Let's give it some more detail here, because there's no way this guy would experience an advanced civilization and not write the details about it. That whole fake diary would probably fit into 10 pages, like just 10 regular type pages. This guy told you more than 10 pages about breakfast. He would go on for 10 pages about breakfast. Like he had nothing to do but to give details either. He didn't look like he watched TV or anything like that. This guy was very, very dedicated to his job, very dedicated to recording everything about his military life, at least, not necessarily his personal life. But yeah, there's no way this guy's going to experience the most fantastic thing he's ever seen and just give you a few odd details that sound like a drama student wrote them. It sounds like a bad writer wrote them. And again, it sounds like a political ideology, which is nuclear holocaust is going to destroy us all. That's what it sounds like. Somebody who was concerned about that. They were not that well informed on Byrd's actual writings. It looks like they didn't read Byrd's other books because they didn't attempt in any way to match it to his actual words, even his actual diaries. Because there is that one secret diary that was found in Ohio, but he had other diaries. Like, this man wrote, this man spent decades writing. And even if it wasn't right during the time, he had years afterwards to flesh out the details and give us the details, or give himself the details. I'm sure he would have written it down if that story really, really happened. Now, you mentioned paperclip. Paperclip, if people don't know, after World War II, a bunch of Nazis were brought over to start NASA and other government projects, including abiotic oil, which is synthetic oil, which is oil is not from fossils. I do believe that very strongly. It's a whole other conversation. But these paperclip Nazis were brought over to do many things, including work on abiotic oil, which had already been developed in Germany, and to work on NASA, basically to start NASA. So it's another reason not to trust anything that ever came from NASA. It's all a controlled psyop, basically, psychological operation. And, how that has to do with paperclip, with a high jump and with Antarctica and Arctic as well, I'm not really sure. It is said, that Nazis had bases in Antarctica, and they probably still do. Who knows? I don't know. But the controllers of every country are very much interested in Antarctica. It is one of the only places in the world where we've all agreed on, right? There's the Antarctic Treaty, which all the countries have agreed. Nobody's going to mess around with anything. Nobody's going to exploit the resources there. You know, there's been no wars about it. There's been no actual disputes about it. Even in countries that are at war now or have been at war in the past, while they were at war, they didn't mess with each other in Antarctica. It's just a place where nobody messes with each other, and it's the one thing on Earth, one place on Earth that all of the military and government agencies agree we're not going to mess around in any way there. That's what it looks like. So it's a very odd thing to have the whole world in cooperation on whatever the heck is going on in Antarctica. And probably should stop here because other than that, we do not know. We don't know. I think there's more land beyond it. I do. I really do. I think there's more land beyond the North Pole. I really do. I think there's continents up there that we're not allowed to. But I also don't have any evidence that human military is allowed there either, which is very interesting. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you so much for covering that because, it's one of those conspiracy and then goes on to say that at the point they had to warn Admiral Byrd to not say nothing. They had to kill him because he was going to expose the whole lot and whatnot. Anyway, I'll leave that. Operation Fish Bowl. There was a brief video of Hillary Clinton that I saw. In that video, she was referencing that she said something around one day we are going to shatter the dome glass or something like that. Okay, so I think this is my understanding of what the event was about. They were testing out some weapon, and then there was some sort of glass ceiling, like a dome, over us. And then I saw this video, very brief video of Hillary, where she was saying that, oh, and as for the dome, one day we're going to shatter the glass dome. Is there any truth to it? Is there a dome above us that we cannot go beyond?
Well, when you start to get into signs and symbols and things that are put into TV shows and movies and so on and so on, the dome Earth, the snow globe Earth, is very much one of those things that they poke fun at, and that is always hinted at in all over movies and TV and media in general. Now, it's hard to take that at face value because they lie to us about everything. But the theory is that they put the truth in plain sight, but they lie with their words, right? So they tell us one thing, like maybe they'll make a joke about the dome Earth or whatever, but really they'll put this symbolism all the way around in all their set designs and everything like this, just like they put the number 33 and they use the color orange and they use, all these other signs and symbols that are, again, pretty much always in the set designs of movies and music videos and concert stages and Super Bowl stages and all these types of things, Olympic opening ceremonies. They use this symbology. And so it's hard to know whether the controllers are misleading us with this dome figure, because there's a bunch of conspiracy theory truther people that think, hey, we shouldn't believe we live in a fishbowl, it's limiting, and that view of the world comes from the Masons, so why would we believe them? But there is evidence for it. There is evidence for it. One of the evidence is the faking of space. Part of this whole thing is like, I would believe in space if they simply showed me an unedited footage of them going into space, to show the rocket the whole way, don't clip it up, don't pretend to lose the footage and whatever, all this nonsense that goes around. Don't show me CGI images. Don't show me paintings. Give me real footage of space, and maybe I'll believe in space. But the fact that they've gone so far to fake everything to do with space, everything, literally everything we've ever been shown about space is fake, computer-generated paintings, and all of the people involved are Masons. I'm not meaning that everyone in the control room is a Mason. Maybe they are. But all of the people that are on camera saying, hey, we're in space, they're doing the symbols, and they're on wires. You can tell they're on wires. We can tell it's fake in numerous ways, and they're Masons. And they're not hiding this fact. They wear the rings. They have their allegiance, and they're upfront about this. They're 100% Masons, astronauts. They call them astronauts. So if space was real, they wouldn't have to fake it. Now, what is above us? I don't know. I tend to think it's an energy field rather than something physical. Just like when you play a video game and you get to the boundary, what happens? Nothing. You just bounce back. It's an energy field. And it's not even really a field because it's a digital thing. But I do believe that this is a simulation. This is a digital world. So it would be easy to have it. not a physical dome, basically. Now, the Bible says, and yet, look, the Bible is from the controllers as well, right? Whatever truth is left in it has been edited. The controllers have edited the Bibles and all the holy books and all this stuff. So when it says the firmament separates the waters from the waters, I don't know how literally we can take that. I don't believe that it's a physical object. I believe that it is a energy field of some kind. I don't know if you've ever seen sundogs. Sundogs are a reflection of the sun. Like you got the sun and you've got these halos around it. And, the theory is that that's reflecting off of the dome because the sun would be inside the dome and the sundogs are the reflection of the fishbowl, basically. And you can do that with your own fishbowl and a flashlight, and you can see sundogs are created as well. So I do believe that there is something there, but it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be glass or anything like that. Just because it brings up all kinds of structural issues. Now, there's glass in Africa in the Sahara Desert that they say is unlike any glass anywhere in the world. They said the whole desert's made of this glass, and a lot of people say that, hey, that's part of the dome when it shattered. Well, it's just weird to me. Again, separating the waters from the waters. I'm trying to make physical sense of this. If there's waters above us, and when we look at the stars and the planets, they look like they're being projected through water. They do, but if there's a hole in the dome, then the water must have come through, right? If there's some kind of an ocean above us, and why wouldn't that come through? Why would we have a desert made of glass from the dome, but the water didn't come through the dome? That doesn't make sense. Is it self-replicating and self-fixing? I don't know. When we're talking about, again, the structural physics involved, it becomes very, very difficult to imagine the actual scale of this dome. I have a much easier time believing that this is all energy fields, and that the sun and the moon are both holographic projections, basically plasma phenomena, because this whole world would be plasma phenomena. Again, I know this is super, super deep end. People probably weren't even expecting this. We're talking about mudflood. Mudflood's a physical thing, sure. But in the last talk, we talked about how it's very likely to me that the mudfloods are the residue of these massive major electrical storms that basically melted the old world. If we call the Tartarian world the old world, it'd be the old world that was melted from these storms. This speaks to me as more of again, plasma phenomena. And it would be that this whole thing that we live in is some kind of a plasma phenomena. And I just have a much easier time believing that than an actual dome. One reason for this is we all know the UN map, flat Earth map, right? Where it's got all the continents spread out around the center. It's missing the Arctic continents, the 4 Arctic continents that are on all the old maps, but neither here nor there. The ring around it is Antarctica. I don't think that is what the world actually looks like. There are some very interesting people on YouTube now showing that our map corresponds quite well to the moon, meaning that the moon is a reflection of the Earth. It's not reflecting from the sun, it's a reflection of the Earth. And that our part of the world is not as neat and tidy as it is on the UN map. That there are other continents in our circular-ish part. It wouldn't be more like a blob. There are other continents in there that we're not allowed to, or that flights don't go over, or whatever. Maybe giants live there, maybe Palladians live there, maybe these celebrities, once they're killed, they go there. You said maybe Byrd, maybe Admiral Byrd was killed. Maybe not. Maybe they gave him the option of retiring, so to speak, moved him somewhere else. But it wasn't really because he was causing a stir. He didn't really say that much. He has that interview of, there's more land and whatever. We all know there's land in Antarctica. I mean, that's not a secret. There's more land than we thought, more resources than we thought. That's not really hard to believe. I don't think they really often because of that. But maybe these people, when they are given their exit, especially when it happens on their 33 days and their 66 days and whatever, when they do make their exit, where do they go? Maybe they go to one of these other continents. I don't know. Now, here, the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think it's a pure circle like we're shown on the UN map. So therefore, I don't think it's a fishbowl in that direct sense. This place is much bigger than that. And the land around us, what we call Antarctica, is not just a circle. It's a very weird shape. And so when you're looking at it and projected into the moon, what we know of is about a third of that whole thing. So that means the dome is going to have to be significantly bigger. And when we scale out things in structural physics, statics, it's more than 3 times as big. I mean, we're talking about unbelievably huge quantities of material that would be needed to make this dome. Because even in our little world, it's pretty big, even in our little spot that we know about, that dome is got to be freaking massive. And it has to be in the correct shape and everything, or it's not going to hold itself. So if we're talking about now our land is maybe 3 times bigger than that, again, the dome is more than it has to be more than 3 times as strong. It has to have more than 3 times as material because it's scaled out. So it's just a lot. Now, what I believe is that the whole NASA thing was faked because, well, Russia was faking it first. I believe the Russians sent up the first rockets and they hit the dome. I believe they hit the dome. And I believe the data actually says that, the actual recorded history of these events, I believe that's what it shows. I believe they hit the freaking dome. And at that point they said, you know what, we're going to fake it anyways. And so the US said, you know what, why not? We're going to fake it too, basically. And other countries have joined in this too. If you look at the Chinese space programs, I mean, their footage sucks. Like, they're not even good at faking it. Stanley Kubrick did a better job on 2001, the year before they actually put the moon mission on television. And Hollywood's been doing that ever since. They're very good at faking it for movies, but they kind of suck at doing it in real life. And the Chinese and Russian footage it's garbage. It's not convincing at all. I don't know how anybody believes it. It doesn't even line up with the American footage. And even the Americans, they can't just show us a consistent view of what the world actually looks like. They're like, oh, one year the North America takes up the whole freaking globe. The next year it's much smaller. Like, what are you doing here? Just keep it consistent at least. It's like they honestly have no respect for us in the sense that they don't even bother faking it well. It's very insulting, actually. I was really upset about this, by the way. This was like 2015 when all this started coming out. And I went to my bookshelves and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've wasted years reading trash, reading garbage that is not even trying to convince me properly, because they're showing me paintings and they're showing me CGI and it doesn't even line up. This picture of the Earth doesn't line up with this picture of the Earth. What the heck? Just be consistent. But again, they don't even respect us enough to be consistent in the fake information that they give us. They change it all the time. Just like we saw with this stupid virus thing that's happened the last 2 years. When they decide to just stop talking about it, they just stop talking about it. When there's holes in their theory, they just blow it off. Whatever, we're just going to keep going with this stupid nonsense. Anyways, I mean, it's insulting to me. I was insulted when I first found this information and about the dome and all this stuff, because it was easy to go to my bookshelves and be like, wow, it's true. Everything that I've been shown is fake. It's all CGI and bogus nonsense. And I already know from my video, the problem with the Big Bang Theory, I already know the Big Bang Theory only had 2 points that it rested on. Both of those points are not strong at all, and can be easily explained in other ways. I do recommend that video. It's 20 minutes long, go into full detail on that. But your question was only about the dome. And I do believe that the dome is real. I do not believe that it's made of glass. I do not believe that it's physical. I believe that it's plasma in some way, hologram, or some energy field, or just a pure video game. Just a straight up video game. And that's the boundary. And once you get there, that's it. Maybe your rocket explodes. Maybe you just bounce back down. No idea.
All right. I think we would be bringing it to a close with just one more question, and then maybe we'll take a question or two and round it off. Just one more question. I'm thinking if I touch on Area 51 or if I should ask the question of underground cities. Which of these two questions would you like to deal with, Ryan? Area 51, underground cities in the world? Because
they're kind of the same question. Right?
Okay.
The theory is that they took the craft from the Roswell crash and they brought it to Area 51. There's 2 Area 51s actually, by the way. One's in New Mexico and the other one's in Nevada. It's a little bit confusing there. But I don't know what happened on that particular day. I mean, that's one of the oldest conspiracies that there is. And, I don't think it was a weather balloon, obviously. I think it could have been a craft made by the military. I do think that we do have anti-gravity technology, and that's not something that we're allowed to know about. But I don't think they're as good as like the orbs that I was describing. I don't think I think we're still trying to catch up to that. But what we know of is flying saucers or flying Vs or flying triangles. Those could easily be military because they're not that impressive, but they are anti-gravity technology for sure. Underground bases, this is another one of the parts of the conspiracy world that could easily be planted information because we really don't know. There is people like William Cooper and others who, claim to have evidence of stuff that's happened down there, but we have to take their word for it. Now, I lived next to, at one point in my life, I lived in Trona, California, which is next to Ridgecrest, California, which is the home of one of the largest military bases in the entire world. It's called China Lake Naval Base. And so this is an area where you see lots of experimental crafts, mostly planes, stealth bombers, stuff like that. And they're real jerks about it. They fly really close. They're not supposed to fly that close over homes, but they do. And it rattles stuff off the shelves like you're in an earthquake and whatever. It's very annoying. But they don't respect the people that live around there. There's lots of chemtrails around that area. There's lots of weird stuff around that area. And it's said to be a major deep underground military base. A dome, that's what they call them. There's said to be a big dome under China Lake. I tend to believe it because the infrastructure around China Lake on the ground doesn't look like very much. And this is one of the hottest places in the entire world, by the way. It's right outside of Death Valley. So it's extremely hot. It would make sense that they would build mostly underground anyways. But, and there's also these sounds that you can hear all over the world, where these big screeching sounds, and people record them with their phone and they're like, what the heck is that? I think it can be a drilling operation. What we're hearing on the surface is a drilling operation, big drills, drilling tunnels. There does seem to be major tunnel systems underneath America. There's tunnel systems under all of the major buildings that you can name, underneath the Vatican, underneath the where the royals live in England. I just can't remember the name of it, sorry. Under all the parliament buildings in Washington, D.C., there's all these tunnel systems there. Were they there before? I don't know. Are they part of the deep underground military base thing? Maybe, I don't know. This is where we really, really get into the deep end of the conspiracy world, because it is said that these royals and these elites and celebrities who are part of the club as well, one of the things that they're involved in is child trafficking and blood sacrifices and all this weird sexual stuff with kids and satanic rituals and all this. And I don't know. A fair bit of evidence for it. It's really, really disturbing to think about. It's the part of the conspiracy world that turns off a lot of regular people, which also says that it might be planted information, because, right, what would the controllers want to do? They'd want to keep people away from the truth, right? So if the regular average person tunes into the truther world, like someone would just pop on right now and be like, these guys talking about blood sacrifice and celebrities, I'm out, because it's too dark. It's too dark. The average person doesn't want anything to do with that. And whether it's true or not, right? So even if it was true or not, this is a part of the conspiracy world that could be infiltrated in order to turn the average person off, because nobody wants to believe this, frankly. And, once we start getting into this part of the world, the conspiracy world, Pizzagate and all this, once we start getting into this level, it's really something that the average person does not want to deal with. And even me as a truther, it's something I don't want to deal with, Oh man, I wish none of this existed. I wish there was nothing to say on Pizzagate and celebrity as demonic, satanic rituals and stuff. I totally wish this didn't exist. I don't enjoy watching or reading or anything. I don't enjoy learning about this at all. It's horrible. Someone said to me today on a message, they're like, man, I'm getting depressed, learning about what the world is really like. I said, I feel you. I understand, man. Like it's not nice to understand this stuff. It's not nice to see the world that we really live in. And this is the real, deep, dark end of it. Your question was about underground military bases. If any of this is true, then that is what happens in the underground bases. Is there good evidence for it? At this point, in my opinion, no. There is not sufficient evidence to say completely this is what happens. And this goes into human cloning as well, by the way. A few years ago, it became very popular, the human cloning subject. I do believe much of that is infiltrated, and a lot of that is fake information given to mislead us truth people. And it's because the information only comes from a few people. It's because there's not very many pictures and whatever to go along with it. And it's very far-fetched to me. It's possible, certainly possible, but that doesn't mean it's true. So there's a lot of weird stuff in this part of the conversation that isn't backed up by facts. It just flat out isn't. And there's a lot of people who just like continue to parrot the message that, oh yeah, human cloning is real. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But we need better evidence for this. There again, a lot of weird stuff. You start looking into celebrities and all this, super, super weird. Transgenders, right? Remember the devil himself, Baphomet, is a transgender. So this is once again, people I know, by the way, the people that I know in real life, when we get to this point in the conversation, a lot of them are like, look, I don't want to talk about that. I don't even want to, no, I don't want to believe this. I don't want to do, it's not possible to them that the female singers and actresses that they've been looking at could have been born male. It's not possible to them. It's not something they want to entertain, not something they want to talk about, and it's something that they get angry about, quite frankly. But it could be the other way as well. Remember, the controllers, the Masons, the whatever, they're all about opposites. They love opposites, so flipping genders is part of that. Again, their god, Baphomet, Lucifer, he is transgendered. He has breasts. This is not hidden. The Satanic Bible and all this, they are worshiping an entity that is transgendered. And this is not saying that transgender people are bad or anything. This is done deliberately. A real transgender person, someone who was born female or male, and they feel opposite in their mind, that's one thing. It's another thing for Masons to have children and to give them a sex change on purpose when they're young, in order to put them into the spotlight and have the people that we identify as sexually female are actually males, right? And this is, even when I started talking about this right now, I was kind of like, you should stop talking, Ryan, because this turns people off, it freaks people out. But man, there's more evidence for transgender celebrities than there is for deep underground military bases, than there is for gray aliens or reptilian aliens. Like there's way more evidence, even if it's suggestive and anecdotal. I mean, it adds up to a heck of a lot when you start putting all this stuff together. I do art, as a passion. I know what a female and male body look like. They're very different. And it's just too weird to me. It's too many coincidences that basically all of the female celebrities have male features. Rihanna's in the news a lot right now with her baby bump. It very much looks fake. She's got this big freckle on her real stomach. It's not on the baby bump. What's going on? What's going on? Beyonce, getting up and down. It looks like a pillow. Doesn't look like a real pregnant woman. I mean, the skin looks like rubber. There's too much of this stuff. The hip sizes and ratios. Again, literally almost any female celebrity that you want to name, they have what I would call a male body. It's been modified a little bit. And most of the male figures as well have female bodies, female facial features. Now I'm gonna stop. Let me say one more thing. Part of the reason for this, and part of the reason that for everything that the Masons do. And by the way, I apologize if it just freaked anybody out. Some people might have just unfollowed me. Like, this guy's nuts. This guy's off his rocker. Look into it, because this has been many years that this subject has existed, and I didn't want to believe it at first either, but if I look further and further into it. Anyways, one of the things that the controllers like to do is to corrupt our families, right? They're trying to corrupt us. They're trying to corrupt our souls. This is what they're doing with black magic and Satanism. They're controlling us through our perception of reality, but they're also destroying our unity, because our power comes from our unity. Our power comes when we work together. Our power comes with love and understanding. Right? When we understand each other and we love each other and we get along, this is where our power comes from. Now, obviously, the controllers want to maintain power. How do you do that? You keep power away from us, the regular people. We outnumber them greatly. We don't practice Satanism. The people here that are following this, we don't practice black magic, probably most of us. So We're not involved in that world. It's a very small group of people that control everything. And that's one of the things that people have questions about. Like, how could this small group of Masons literally infiltrate everything? Well, look at the few companies that literally own everything, right? Look at the way that the leaders get along and everything. Again, on the Antarctic Treaty and whatever. It's all a theater, in my opinion. Even this whole war, people think Putin is on the other side, just like they thought Trump was on the other side. BS. They're all part of the same club. It's all part of the same theater, and it's not a very big club. It's not a big club, but you're not in it. That's the point here. And the point that I'm making is that if we really did understand our power and understand the nature of this world and understand the nature of the controllers, we would unite. We would not be talking about black versus white and whatever, we would not be going along with any of these things that divide us. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated, the controllers are always putting in these dichotomies to split us up and put us against each other. They've got Japanese people out of America during World War II and everything. We should be working with Japanese people. We should be working with all people. We should be understanding that we are all one except for the controllers. And the only way that we're going to get rid of the controllers is by unifying. So why would they infiltrate all pop culture with these various agendas that inevitably split us up from the family level onwards? We're talking about feminism and the whole civil rights and white people are oppressing black people and all this stuff that divides us. They've had this in the media since there was a media, right? They've been inflaming tensions since the beginning. Why would they do this? Because it splits us up as a society, splits us up as a culture, and it splits us up as a family. It really, really does. Now, with this whole transgender thing, what we've got is people who were born men but grow up to be female entertainers. Well, the types of sexuality and the types of personality that they're going to have are still going to be male at the heart of it. And what is this? It's aggressive, independent, right? I don't need no man, right? If you actually listen to the celebrity messages, that's what you're going to get. The soft men and hard women. And it's weird. And if you try and be like them, you're going to fail. Because if you were born a female, you can't act like Beyonce. Beyonce is a man. She's born a man. That her sexual energy, her aggression, again, her independence, these types of things, these are male features, like it or not. So if you want to be the strong, independent woman like Beyonce, you're being misled. What you're being misled to do is to not form the strongest bond that there is, which is the man and the woman getting together. They say all good men have a good woman behind them. I believe that. I have a good woman behind me. Our power is from our unity. It's not from, I don't need no man. I'm going to do everything by myself and be poor in the ghetto by myself and raise my kids by myself and all this stuff. Hopefully I didn't sound black there. I'm not trying to. This happens in white people as well. This is just like this attitude of like, I don't need nobody. This is even the American attitude in general. I don't need nobody. I'm going to do it by myself. That's freaking nonsense. We don't do anything by ourselves, with few exceptions. Where we have gotten in society, talking about the giant buildings and stuff, like nobody built those by themselves. We did this through unity and teamwork and working together, so like from the family unit to the society unit, this is what it's all about. And almost all of the effort that has been put in to what we're shown on media, movies, music, and all this stuff is to split that up. Even from music I like, by the way. This is part of the reason people are like, I like the Beatles and I like the Rolling Stones, and I don't like you saying that they're Satanists. Well, freak. They were promoted by the CIA. Started and promoted by the CIA. Why? Why? Why do they inject this idea of rebellion? I'm a rebel. I grew up a rebel. Why? Right? What did I listen to? I listened to blues music and rock and roll and rap music in that sequence. What did it do? It made me feel like I should do everything on my own, like I shouldn't really trust anybody, like the world is a dark place. Rap more specifically literally told me to commit crimes and be a criminal, and I was. I listened to it, and that's what I became. And this is how you're going to get if you absorb the media that's given to us. It's going to push you towards darkness and loneliness. It's going to push you away from the unity with the opposite sex, the unity with other races of people, other cultures of people. You know, again, and what does this do? This takes us away from our power source, our power base. This is our power. And now what we have is a world largely on its own. You know, almost everybody's taught that we're supposed to just make it on our own and whatever. Even the idea of just getting a job, you know, getting a job and getting your own paycheck and your own house, and even if it's with a family or not, like you are separated from society at that point. You know, you having your job and your paycheck is not working together. You know, whereas in other businesses, you know, we have to work together. You can't just do your own thing. Like literally, we have to support other people. I'm in a business that, you know, I have to support the people that I work with. And they have to support me. We have to work together. It doesn't work any other way. And this is probably how the economies of the past operated. This is how the economies of natural people out there operate. You know, I've said that I've lived in a tiny little village in Costa Rica, and everybody works together. You know, we have to work together. We need a new room on the school. Everybody gets together and we got to build a new room on the school, period. There's no question about this stuff. You know, we figure it out. It's not like we have a schedule on the wall, like this person's gonna cut the soccer field this day. No, man, it just happens naturally. Everybody understands that all the stuff in the town's got to be done, and everybody works together. And if somebody's falling behind, they help them out. Like, it's just how the human race should be, how the human society should be. And I know I've gone kind of long here, but it's because we went deep, and I wanted to explain it a little bit, that when you get into the real dark stuff, the transgender agenda, you know, the feminism and everything, like the goal of this is to split us up, split us apart, and make everybody think that they got to make it on their own, which is just nuts. It's not a human drive that we've ever had. You know, this is a modern drive that's been given to us through modern media, from the controllers, and we see them successful, right? Go back to Beyonce. You see, oh, well, that worked for Beyonce. Did it really? No, it didn't, because you can't be an entertainer. You can't be a rapper unless you have people that you know or grew up with, people in your family that are in the industry, period. And this, again, it offends people. Oh, I love Tupac. I love Biggie Smalls. I love all these Nipsey Hussle, whatever. These are industry plants, and you have to understand this. These people were raised to be entertainers, and they would not be entertainers unless they had people in the business and they're connected to their families. This bloodline, this goes back multiple generations. There is no celebrity that you can name that is not connected to this bloodline. There is no celebrity that you can name that has not been born into the club, born and groomed into the club. And you will definitely not find any that do not have family relations to the industry. This is the point. People in the industry knows this. They know this as well. People in the industry know that you can't be an entertainer. It doesn't matter if you can rap, stupid. It doesn't matter if you can sing. It doesn't matter if you can act. You will not be in the industry if you do not have family in the industry already. And if you do manage somehow to be let in, you are going to be forced to take oaths. You are going to be forced to do things that you never, ever thought that you would do. Now, let me say too, I know I'm going deep here, but there's a lot of stories about this. I used to listen to a lot of rap and a lot of underground rap and mixtapes and all this stuff. And my dad was a blues man, by the way, so I was raised on the blues music and all this stuff. I had nothing in our house except for a record player. I would play the Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the B.B. King and whatever, all this stuff. I was raised on this stuff. But I used to wonder, I'm like, you know what, there was this sick rapper on this mixtape. You know, he was sick, what's up? He was just getting involved with Puff Daddy and whatever. He's called Diddy now, whatever. What happened to that guy? Now I'm going back now that there's YouTube, and I'm looking into some of these people. I'm like, what happened to that person? That person was really talented. That person was looking like they were getting involved in the industry. What happened? Why didn't they ever release an album? What went on here? And you go and you hear their interviews now, and there's lots of them. There's lots and lots of people who are giving lots of the same story, basically, that they were invited to a party at one point by somebody like Puff Daddy or someone in the industry. Yeah. They were invited into a party. They saw what was going on at that party, and they walked away because they knew there was no going back from that point. Now, what the story that they tell a lot of times is that usually you're not going to be invited to this party until after you've already gotten your advance, basically, right? So, hey, you're from the streets, like you're really from the streets, you're really from the hood, you really do have talent. You were given $100,000 advance on your album. What do? You buy your mom a house, right? Or you buy your friends chains and whatever, you're flaunting, flossing. you're already in, basically. And what you'll be having experienced at that time is being groomed. You'll be assigned a makeup woman. You're going to get used to putting makeup on. You might object a little bit at first, but hey, you've got this advance. You got to do this show. You got just a little bit of makeup, no big deal. They might put you in a
Absolutely.
dress if you're talking about acting, right?
Absolutely.
People say, hey, all black actors had to wear a dress. Bullshit. It's not just black actors, it's white actors too. If you're in the club and you're a man, you have to wear a dress on camera, period, at some point in your career, probably at the beginning of your career. So this is this kind of stuff that's going to be happening. They're dressing you up. They're dressing you up. You've gotten your advance already. You might be a little bit uncomfortable about this stuff, but yeah, they just gave you $100,000, $200,000. You know, you're going to wear the
Wow.
makeup. You might have protested a little bit, but they're going to say you got to do it. This is part of the industry. You show up on camera. You got to have the makeup on. Okay, okay. You got to wear this flashy, shiny clothes or whatever that you don't want to wear. Lots of street dudes told this story. Like, man, I just wanted to put an album out. Diddy's making me wear this shiny stuff, and like, what's going on here? Or the dress, or the whatever. This is part of being groomed, and this is part of leading up to the party. And what's going to happen at the party is you're going to do something that you would never, ever, ever, ever want anybody knowing about. Something horrific, something satanic. You might be involved in a child sacrifice. You might have to have sex with a man. You know, you might have to do something horrible, truthfully, against your will. And what's
You
that?
too.
What's it going to be? It's going to be on camera. And now they got you. Now they got you
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Right? This is the dark side of the industry. And this is someone saying, you know, they're conditioning them. Yes, this is conditioning them. This is how it goes. Once they make that decision, again, it's a huge decision. People may be like, why would they do that? Why would they sign this deal with the devil or whatever? Again, they've been led up to it, and they've already been given the advance. It takes a strong person to give that money back, right? And they probably already spent it, frankly. They probably already bought their money. They got to go home now and say, Mom, we got to go back to the ghetto. Sorry, we got to sell this house. We had this advance. Diddy wanted me to, you know, have sex with these dudes in goat masks, and I just wasn't about it. Sorry, you know. It's a big thing to do. You know, a lot of people want, it seems, once they're already pushed into that position, it's just that final step now. You got to do this one thing. And of course, they say it's just this one thing, but of course it's not. Of course, it's a lifetime of these types of things. Now, you wonder why a lot of these people do commit suicide, or why they do choose to disappear and get away from the industry once their contracts are up, and why they still don't want to talk about it today, and why some of them that are on camera that are willing to talk somewhat about this, they're staying away from the details. I think there's a lot of fear put into them that if they really do talk about the details, someone really will come for them. Or worse, because if you're a caring, empathetic human being, I don't really personally care if someone comes for me. I care if someone comes for someone I love, right? I don't want someone messing with my mom, my sister, my wife, my friends, you know. So you know that once you have this information, if you speak out, they are probably going to get someone you love. It's not just going to be you. And it's probably not just going to be you dying. You know, at this point, this type of stuff that we talk about, there's a lot of things that are worse than death. You know, and if you're really understanding these people that control everything, death is not the real consequence. Death is the easy way out. If you're
Agree.
lucky if they kill you, you know,
Agree.
you could have all types of horrible things done to you, and you could have all types of horrible things done to your family if you speak out against this kind of stuff. And see, I've never been invited to the party. I don't really know, so I'm just speaking theory. I don't think anyone's going to come for me because I don't have any real information. But the people who do know this stuff from the inside, you can see it in their eyes. First of all, you can see their eyes are dead. You can see their souls are
True.
dead. You know, they've given their soul up for this, and you know, they know that they can't say anything. They just can't. Maybe one day when they're old and gray and everyone they love is gone, they will speak up. But for now, we get a lot of coded messages alluding to this stuff from people who do care and people who do want to speak the truth, but know they can only speak so much truth. And
Absolutely.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop now at this point. It's just got dark. It got deep. But hey, this is the reality that we live in, I believe.
We definitely need to stop. Ryan, we've gone way past time. And been pretty intensive. It's been pretty informative, and I agree with you. You don't even have to be in the club to know some of these things and have ideas of some of these things. There is no way to rationalize the fact that no matter what celebrity you're going to point out, there is just something very awkward about them. They just have them doing something very strange. You see them wearing dress, You see them, it's not because it is something fanciful. They have been conditioned to behave that way, and it is tied. And you hear some of them saying they sold their soul to the devil, right? It might just be some of the things that they've been conditioned to do that they refer to as selling their souls to the devil. We see what Britney Spears is currently doing. It's just so many details like that. I was looking at this other guy, the Formula One race guy, Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
Okay. For a while, I think they've been trying to get that brother to wear a dress. But recently, in one of the awards, I don't know, I don't watch TVs like that. I don't know the name. I saw him, sorry, adding a dress pattern to his outfit. Now he has like a female wedding gown attached to his outfit, and now he's gone. Just recently, he came out and he said he's introducing his mother name to his name because he does not understand the concept of removing the mother's name when they are married, XYZ. There's just this conditioning that goes on, and it is really deep. Ryan, thank you so much. For coming. Hopefully, our next sit down is going to be around celebrities. Why and why not we shouldn't use them as examples? Because truth of the matter is they are very powerful people when it comes to influencing the Afrid minds. Okay, celebrities play major role, and I think this is one of the things they are prop up to do. They are prepped to do these things, influence your decision, influence your behavior, influence the way you talk, influence the way you dress, influence your understanding of the world. So, and most people really, really do idolize these celebrities, especially those who don't know any better. So I think this should be what our next discussion would be around. Thank you very much, Ryan, for joining. Hopefully this will make it to your YouTube because it is explosive. Ryan, any final word before we drop the curtain?
No, I will pick up on it next time, but yeah, definitely anything on the TV you want to be wary of. Just don't trust anything on the TV. Don't trust any celebrity, frankly. They don't live in the same world as you, basically. The world that we live in is totally, totally different from the celebrity world. I mean, these people fly private jets just to go to the Super Bowl and all this stuff. It's not about money. It's about being involved in the control system. Every time you hear something that, it sounds positive out of a celebrity, it's a distraction because none of them are talking about us actually getting together and building a better world and expelling these leaders, getting rid of these leaders, putting these leaders to trial for treason and all this stuff that we should be doing. You never hear this stuff out of celebrities. Again, they might be like, oh, we're going to save the elephants or something. We're going to dig wells in Africa. They're looking like they're good people and like they care about the world. It's not true. These are surface level, superficial things that the causes that they're actually promoting. They're superficial. They just sound good. They just make them look like they're caring people and whatever. But again, if they really, really cared about us, they would be talking about sending our presidents to trial, for treason and for sedition and for the worst crimes that we have. Be exposing the royals and all this stuff for the horrible, horrible things that they are involved with. People, they're still covering up Epstein, right? They're still covering up Ghislaine Maxwell. We know that these people are involved in some of the most evil things that we can imagine. And if celebrities are not talking about this, they're just misleading you. So, yeah, I guess just don't trust any of them. Don't worship any of them, definitely. And even if they're like a local celebrity, I'm from Toronto. People will be like, oh, Drake and The Weeknd and whatever. These people are, no, they're real, man. I know where they came from. I know where no, man, they're in the club. Doesn't matter if they grew up near you. They're not part of your world. They don't have your interests at heart. And they're never going to tell you the truth, quite frankly. So all of this is a distraction. All of this is there to take our souls away from our true power source. However you want to look at it, God or the infinite intelligence or whatever, I see it as our true power is connection with our higher selves, which is quite literally connected with everybody else. We are all one in a very literal sense, in my opinion, at least on frequency level, and taking us away from that truth is what removes all of our power. So turn off the TV, turn off the radio, quite frankly. There's plenty of entertainment out there that doesn't come from above. There's plenty of actual independent creators now that you can find that do have no celebrity status and never will. You won't see me on TV. There's plenty of people like me and like you. We're not gonna be on stage. It's just how it is. Just gotta accept it. We just gotta get our entertainment elsewhere from people who actually understand what it is to be human, and who are not going to be involved in the deception, the great deception, which has taken us away from our power. And that's it. Those are closing words.
All right. Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you to everyone who has joined. I will be posting this on my page. Please go there, like it, save it, share it. This is the only thing that is expected of some of you. Just like the post, save it, invite people to watch it. Go over Ryan's Instagram page, YouTube page, watch the video, like it, encourage it, share with other people. This is how we can create universal awareness around what is going on. With that being said, thank you very much, Ryan, for joining today. I've talked to you behind the camera. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I'm very sure so much was covered. Thank you, everyone, Ryan. Thank you once again for joining, and shalom.
Appreciate you always, Kelly. See you next time.
And definitely check out my book, Fake Diseases. It covers all of the major topics that come up, like birth defects, blood sugar problems, bone and joint problems, cancer, autoimmune problems, and more. And it's on Amazon for just $9.99. I'm very excited to announce my newest book, Everything the Government Does is Bad for Us. And you can get the paperback on Amazon for just $9.99. And you can find the video read-along version or the audiobook on my website, noticebooks.org. And all of my books, audiobooks, and links are available on my website, noticebooks.org. And if you want to see what is apparently my most controversial video that was banned from YouTube and BitChute, you can go to wagthedogtheory.com and view the whole uncensored version of the video. And I recommend downloading it if it is still there. And if you didn't know, I have a whole bunch of merchandise that I designed myself, clothing, prints on canvases and on paper, as well as original artworks on my website, noticeart.com. And you can see more of my art on YouTube, the channel is Notice Art, or Instagram at The Real Notice. And make sure to check out my channel for many other videos on a whole array of subjects, and my other channels are all in the description of this video.